Hello, my name is Gavin Jinks. I am a senior lecturer in social work at the University of Derby in the UK. Back in 2017, I was having a discussion with my sister, Denise Harber. She's my co-presenter. Denise has been a school teacher, a head teacher and a school advisor in UK primary education. We were talking about the fact that she had gone into a failing school in the south of England as its new head teacher, and 3 years later the inspectors had designated this as a good school. And Denise was asking me how did I think that she'd set about undertaking this task, and I said I thought that what she'd probably done was to first of all try and put together a team of staff who believed that this could be a good school, and after that as a team they had set out to try and make the children believe that they could be successful. And Denise said to me, that's exactly what I did. Now, I had already come to the conclusion in my role as an educator in higher education that cultivating the aspirations and the self-belief of students was a fundamental factor in their success. And this set us on the road to writing a journal article and then presenting at an international education conference in Porto last summer. Having done that, we then wanted to try and see if our beliefs stood up to some more detailed scrutiny. And that is what this presentation is all about, because ultimately we have come to the conclusion that the cultivation of the self-belief and the aspirations in learners, regardless of the setting, is of fundamental importance.
In my case, I had identified a school I wanted to work with because they were focusing on building positive attitudes in pupils, developing their self-belief and exploring the strategies used in growth mindset work. We went away and I talked to the head teacher about the project. We agreed that it should be small scale, a case study piece, and that I would work in one class. What I actually managed to do at that stage was to talk to the head teacher and the class teacher about their beliefs and how these affected their practice and also the ethos of the school. And I was also able to talk to the children. My discussion with the head teacher was very interesting.
You can see the children that don't believe in themselves, they're less willing to take risks and make mistakes, so they don't learn as quickly. Sometimes a pupil's negative view of their own ability can prevent them from making any progress. As a teacher and a leader, I've worked hard with such children to change their mindset, and I see the results in their work and in the data, the school data. Yeah, I'm clear that teachers should motivate children to believe in themselves and to always be willing to have a go. Teachers model this when they're teaching and they're not sure of the right answer, and show it's okay to make mistakes as part of getting things wrong in the learning process. We spend quite a lot of time on that in school, teachers putting up mistakes on the board and showing that it's okay. I think that modelling mistakes and having a go attitude, so teachers questioning pupils that praises wrong answers as well as right ones, and talk about a discussion around it rather than oh right, that's right and that's wrong. It's like the children coming to their understanding through the discussion around an answer that isn't necessarily right to begin with. I think verbal feedback has the biggest impact on pupils, because they can understand that the teacher is for them and is praising them for their effort, and then also helping them to look at how they go further. I think sometimes that's quite hard to get across in written feedback, and I find that pupils actually their effort improves when they've spoken directly face to face with their teacher around their work. I think that's very important. I think we're very lucky in a small school like ours, because we know each child very well, and you can easily reach them by adapting the teaching style to what they need. It matters to pupils what we think of them, and what we think of their ability. And I think from research that we've done, it really impacts on how hard they will try next time if they think you believe in them. A lot of children can be really impacted by other adults in their lives too, and their friends, and it can make a huge difference to their self-belief. I know children that if you believe in them, they're willing to take more risks and work harder to prove you right. Children who feel supported and loved will succeed more. Yes, we've done lots of pupil conferencing on this, and it shows like when they feel they will achieve, when their teacher believes in them, and they actually highlight that as something that's helped them achieve their best. Yes, our data shows that since we've been starting using the growth mindset language and really focusing on this side of things, that the attainment has improved as well as the progress, especially in children, amount of children going towards greater depth or showing like a higher ability, ones that maybe didn't believe in themselves before, as well as children across all abilities.
I also found my discussion with the class teacher very interesting. She told me, I'm going to use her own words, that I strongly believe that a pupil's self-belief has a huge impact on his or her attitude and mindset towards school. Low self-belief and self-confidence is one of the greatest barriers to learning. If a child is set an activity that incorporates an aspect of learning that they're not confident with or believe that they're not talented at, this can greatly affect how they perform. Our school values are underpinned in my daily classroom discourse. They're displayed in every classroom, and I believe they have a positive influence on pupils. She also told me that she tries to keep her teaching varied, and that she gives pupils responsibility for their own learning, and thereby creating a sense of ownership. At the beginning of the year, they believed that, or the overwhelming majority believed that they would be able to meet their targets. Some said they would need a little help, others thought that they wouldn't need very much help, and only 3 children said they thought they would struggle to achieve well. However, despite this very positive approach at the beginning of the year, by February, when I spoke to them, 88% of them said that they thought then that they would achieve more than they had thought at the beginning of the year. It was evident that from the children's responses that their growth in confidence was largely to do with the attitudes, the behaviours and the professional practice of their class teacher. And also they've been influenced by the effect of the school, the ethos and the sense of determination which prevails in the school. Many of them told me that they had found the teaching suited them, that the feedback they had from their teachers had been personalised and meant something to them. It was very pertinent, and they also said that it had been very important to them that they felt their teacher believed in them.
So, for my part of this evaluation project, I wanted to take a look at the impact on students' levels of self-belief and on their aspirations of undertaking the BA social work at the University of Derby. And my approach to doing this was to undertake anonymous questionnaires and also some individual interviews with students. I had 35 students who volunteered to undertake anonymous questionnaires and 16 who volunteered to complete detailed interviews. This represented over a quarter of the cohort across all 3 years, and of those taking part there was roughly even numbers from all 3 years of the programme who completed the questionnaires and the interviews. In the discussion in this presentation, I am only providing a snapshot of the results of the evaluation that I undertook, and I will be focusing on self-belief rather than aspirations. However, more detailed analysis, reflection and cross-referencing to other academic pieces of work can be found in the discussion paper that accompanies this presentation. The questionnaire asked students to rate their level of self-belief at the outset of their studies in year one, and what was significant was that a really high proportion of students had some levels of doubt about their ability to complete the social work degree programme. And this is interesting because what we know is that the vast majority of students undertaking BA social work at Derby are ultimately successful, and this highlights a gap between their levels of self-belief at the outset and their actual ability level. This would seem to indicate that it is really important that academic staff work to cultivate the self-belief of students undertaking the programme, particularly in the early stages of their studies. Also, the questionnaires asked the students what their level of aspirations were at the start of their studies. And there's a marked contrast here, because although levels of doubt about academic ability were quite high at the start of their studies, the students tended to have high aspirations. Easily the most popular answer in these questionnaires was that they aspired at least to become successful professionals rather than, for example, simply to pass the degree. So one of the things that the questionnaires were showing was a disparity at the start of their studies between aspiration and self-belief, with quite a marked emphasis really on students lacking self-belief. And what we know, as I said, is that overall students, the vast majority of them, are actually successful. So there's this gap between self-belief and actual academic ability. One of the key questions in the anonymous questionnaire was to ask students what they thought was the impact of quality feedback on their levels of self-belief. And it's interesting that every student who answered the questionnaire said that quality feedback had a positive impact on their levels of self-belief, with really high percentage of those students thinking that that impact was either significant or very significant. And given that the perception of feedback as being of high quality is something subjective, this suggests that it's really important that academic staff actually find out from students what types of feedback they find the most useful. During the individual interviews, one of the comments that came out on a number of occasions was that it was important that feedback was specific and was also based on their strengths. Another interesting result to come out of the questionnaires was the fact that the passion and creativity of academic staff in their teaching was seen as being important for student self-belief, and a very high number of those completing questionnaires said that the positive impact of creativity and passion from academic staff in their teaching was either significant or very significant. Now again, this is something subjective. The perception that teaching is creative and that it is fueled by passion is very much a subjective view, but it does indicate that it's important that academic staff check out with their students what how their teaching is perceived, because this is clearly having an impact then on how students perceive themselves and how much they believe in themselves. Overall, in this piece of work, the overarching linking factor that students identified as being helpful to both their self-belief and their aspirations was a sense of being valued and validated. And a number of students said in individual interviews that it was really important to them that academic staff believed in them and believed in their capabilities. And that for me has been the takeaway finding from this piece of work.
Hello, my name is Dom Jinks and I am the nephew of Denise and Gavin, and I am also a professional theatre director. My relationship with this piece of work is that I decided to, about 5 years ago, take a group of local people in my village to stage a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and we've now moved on to doing Twelfth Night and are due to do Much Ado About Nothing. Now, many of this group, most in fact, have had no experience of live theatre. And to begin with, a whole range of this group were quite literally petrified of the prospect of performing to somewhere between 150 to 400 people. And these are some of the audiences that we've had to our shows. But at the heart of them succeeding was this focus on them realising that they were good enough to perform and to develop and nurture their self-belief. And this was really one of the things that I focused on hugely, was how can I develop this sense of confidence within this actor, this person who actually didn't have very much experience in performing, and give this person the belief that they had the ability and really the drive to perform to a paying public. And some of these productions have been, I think, some of the best work that I have done, and you would struggle, I think, to understand the difference between professional theatre and this. But the real focus has been on developing self-belief amongst this group, and then being able to visualise that they could actually deliver something of real quality, and that individually these people could be hugely successful actors. But the real focus for me was how I supported these people to believe that they could perform.